Hi, and welcome to my new course on how to take a song and make a music video with Unreal Engine. If you haven't already, go ahead and go on over to unrealengine.com and you're going to click the download button. And you're going to get the Epic Games Launcher, which is how we access the Unreal Engine. And as you can see, we've got all kinds of really cool things that we can do here. I know that this will enhance our music and be able to get eyeballs on our brand and our work. Because if our music stands out because of an animated video, that's definitely a good thing. And we all want to get more eyeballs on what we're doing. And it's so hard to get music out there to fans or build a fan base without having something that's a catchy marketing campaign. So I'm going to teach you guys how to make an animated music video. All right, once you've downloaded the Epic Games Launcher, you're going to be greeted with this, and you're going to go to the library tab if it's not already on there. And we're going to select which version of the engine that you're going to download. As you see, I have multiple versions, and we can select a different version here. The current version today is 5.5, and this is the one that we're going to be using for a beginner's course. Now, this is good for beginners and maybe intermediate, people who've never used the engine before, or people who've maybe made a little scene. This is going to be super easy and familiar for you. Okay, so you're going to click the install button, and then we're going to be back in just a moment. Okay, once the engine is installed, we can click the launch button either here or here, and it's going to be just a moment while it loads some prerequisites and compiles some shaders. And then we're going to be faced with this. So this is the project browser. So you can select a project that you've either been working on recently, but today we're going to be starting brand new from scratch. We can see we've got some templates we can start from. And today, I think what we'll do is we'll use the third person. So we're going to click on third person, and we're going to select our project defaults. We're going to be Blueprint today, but you do have the choice of C++ if you were familiar with coding. And we've got the target platform and the quality preset I'm going to leave as default right now. And for starter content, these are some things like materials and shapes and things that we can add, and you can choose to check this box to have it when it starts with every project, or you can uncheck this box and we can add it later like we're going to do right now. So go ahead and leave the box empty, and we're going to go ahead and name our project. And you can choose where we want to put it. You can either change it this way, and we're going to click create, and it'll compile shaders for just a moment, depending on your hardware of your PC or your Mac. Okay, now that the engine has opened, we are greeted with the third-person map. And this is great for debugging and just testing out player mechanics. If you look up here in the upper left-hand corner, we have what, could be called a transport bar. If you're familiar with the DAW, it's very similar because we've got some places and buttons for saving and browsing to folders and adding things to the project and hitting play. And if we hit the play button, you're going to see that it loads us into the third-person map here. And we can walk around using the WASD keys and using our mouse to turn as we walk around. We can jump using the spacebar. And we also have some blocks that have some physics that are in this level as well. Another thing to know, if we hit the escape button, that'll take us back into the build mode. Okay, navigating around the viewport. We're going to be using our mouse, and your left button can look from side to side. Your right mouse button can look around like a camera. And if you hold both buttons down, you can move around from the Z axis, or Z. Another way to move around is to hold the left mouse button, and you can move forward and backwards. We're moving along the X and Y axis. Say we're using our WASD keys and we need to move away from something. We can also hold that down, and we can use our scroll wheel of our mouse to make our camera faster or slower. As you see, it's really slow now. And now we're fast. It'll take a little bit to get used to navigating with a mouse, but once you do, it's really easy, and it'll be very intuitive. Okay, the next thing that we probably want to go over is the content drawer. This is where you're going to find all of the things that are inside of our project. We've got some characters. This is the third-person character, so this is what came with this template pack. And if we open up the meshes, you can see we've got Manny and Quinn. And so we've got a simple version of each of them that have a little bit less triangles and things like that for optimization. Depending on how complex a prop looks, or an asset, or a mesh, will also affect how much performance you can get out of your PC or Mac. I do have FPS running up here. I am running 4K right now, so obviously we could do some optimization. Another thing you can do is if you don't see this FPS, we could click on this 3 dots right here in the upper left of the viewport and click on Show FPS. Okay, I guess that button did not want to work for me, so I used Control-Shift-H. And then we see the FPS come up here. Now, if that's not performant enough, what we can do is we can click the settings right here, and we can lower our scalability settings. So if you're running a PC or laptop that has less hardware and it's not quite so efficient, you can also drop these down to high or medium, and you'll see the FPS go up here. And then now I'm running above 60 FPS, which is probably just fine for 4K. We sometimes will see a little bit of degradation in the quality of textures when we do that. If I were to go back to high and epic, you'll see those things change. And for those of us that do have nice PCs, there is cinematic. So I'm going to put this back at medium, oh, maybe high. That gives me a pretty good balance. Turn off that FPS. Another thing to know, this is called the viewport. And in the viewport here, we've got quite a few different options of things that we can adjust. We'll get into some of these other things in another video, but we do have some layouts if you like a different style of look for your viewport. Maybe you want to have a wireframe look on one side and your actual regular perspective. Maybe you prefer to have an unlit version over here. We can change the perspective. Sometimes it's easier to use unlit to move things around. You can see what it looks like for just lighting. So if we're dialing in lights over here, you can watch how the shadows are affected. So there's a lot of options and wonderful reasons why you would want to have a split screen. It also helps if you have another monitor. You might be able to actually, minimize, maximize, and then a couple of other techniques we could use to do that as well. But we're going to go back to one pane for now. Over here in the upper right hand of this, we've got the selector, and we're going to come down here. I'm going to use my W key to zoom in here. Okay, we've got this gizmo, which moves our block around. If we zoom in here on it, kind of hard to see. Let me put it at the top of it here. We're going to reset its pivot so it's up here on top, so it's easier to see. And we've got, if we look here, on the bottom left-hand corner, we have a little gizmo that shows us that our X is going this direction. And for those of you building things like platformer games and 2D games, it is a good idea to build along your X axis moving forward. Y you could think of as depth for if you're putting things in parallax or things behind each other or in front of each other. And then we've got up and down is our Z or Z. Next, we've got some different shapes that we could adjust over here and move them around. If we wanted to make something else, right? We can turn these objects with the rotate function. And as you can see, when I turn them, it gives us the how many degrees we're turning by. We can adjust those things up here in these options. So this is pertaining to the grid for when we're moving things around. This one pertains to the rotation. And then we also have a scale one, which seems to be hidden at the moment. But I can change the scale of an object by grabbing on the end of this and stretching it out. Depending on what you choose will depend on how much it'll stretch out. So if I were to choose 0.5, it's going to be much bigger of a distance. You could also scale along the XY axis or on the Z. Or if you wanted to do it proportionally for the whole thing, you would grab the middle, so it grabs all of them, and then you can make the whole thing bigger. Play around with these tools and get used to them. Let's make a scene. And to do that, we're going to want to add some things to our project. So here in our content drawer, if we go back to the root of the content folder, we're going to make a new map. And so first, we need to make a folder, and we're going to call this one 1_maps. And if we want, we can change the color of the folder so that when you come back into your project, you're able to easily identify where your maps are. Because sometimes you'll be wanting to swap back and forth between a map you're building in and maybe a map that you're grabbing other assets from and kit bashing. And so we're going to set the color. I like to put mine at red or like a raspberry color. Okay, and so what we're going to do is we're going to save, and then we're going to click File, New Level. And for this, we're going to choose the basic one, because we're going to utilize the sky so that we can see while we're building. Click the Create button, and then the very first thing you want to do is we want to save this level. And so you're going to click the Save button, we're going to go into our Maps folder, and then we're going to name this Blank Open. And why this is important, because when you have a very complex map that you're building for your game, sometimes you don't want to reopen your project with all those items in it. It's going to take a really long time to shader when it opens. A trick that I've picked up over the years was I make a blank open map. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to my content drawer. I'm going to go find it and I'm going to hit this. I'm going to make sure it's selected. So we're going to click it once to make it selected. And then we're going to go and open our project settings. And so this is the next super important thing to know where to get to. So you're going to click the edit tab, come down to project settings. And I like to take this tab and dock it next to my map right here. In the project section over here in the project settings, we're going to go to maps and modes. And so this is where we can set the map that opens whenever we open this project again. And so we're going to make it the blank open. So when it opens, it's going to be the blank one. Next, let's make a new level. And this is going to be the one we're going to build in. So again, file, new level, and basic, and create, and then save. All right, so let's call this, I know we all love studio gear, so let's use some music studio equipment to build a little scene and get used to how we put together something. We're going to call this the studio. Now let's go to the Epic Games Launcher because we're going to find some props that we can add to our project. And if you open up the launcher, you're going to come to the News tab usually first. So we'll want to click the Library tab and we're going to scroll down into your library and select some items. If you haven't gotten any items yet, first, we'll want to go over to Fab and go and grab some. So we're going to click on the Fab Marketplace here. And so this is Epic Games Store's new asset launcher and place where all of the assets you can purchase and get for free are located, including some learning packs. As you can see here, we've got limited time free ones. And so what you would do is you would click on them and you can add them to your cart and then check out because they're free. You won't have to pay anything or enter any credit card information, but it'll add it to your library inside here. So the Fab library. And once you've purchased something or added a free item, you'll click this button right here. It'll sync all of your assets to your library vault. And then you'll be able to go and we'll add it to a project. Okay, so I'm going to start adding some of these content packs. And so I'm going to click on this audio rack equipment one here. And I'm going to click add to project. And we're going to scroll and look for our tutorial. Okay, I see that this one is not available on 5.5 yet. But I'll show you a trick here how we can make any of those assets available. We're going to click show all projects and scroll down until we find our project, which we're in tutorial 2. And we're going to select the last version that these assets were available for, 5.4. Add to project. And then it'll download it and add it to the project. So go ahead and add your props to your project. And then we're going to go ahead and I'll see you back in the engine in just a few moments. All right, and now we're back inside the engine after adding our content packs. I'm going to make my little bubble go away so it's not in the way while I am building this level for you folks. And so if we go into our content drawer now, we are going to be able to see that there is a whole bunch of new stuff added here. I added a few content packs, so I added mostly music equipment and things like that. The first thing we like to do before I get started building is I like to go look at the content packs because a lot of times they will include a level or an overview that you can see all the assets in. Another thing that's nice is you can open these up to take a look at them. And so we double click this presentation one. Some of these levels will take just a few minutes to open. And if that's the case, just take a quick break and let your computer do the work and it'll be there in just a few minutes. Okay, and after it's finished shadering, if we press the G key, we can turn off all of these little things, like these are lights and things that have been placed in the scene. But let's take a look around and turn off that, and we'll press the G key to turn on game mode. And this pack this developer made is just superb. It's full of all kinds of really cool pieces of gear that look super close and accurate to a lot of the gear that we use every day. So these are some great assets. This developer did an amazing job, and I am very, very grateful and glad that I was able to get this. Recording console. I've got another one that's got an SSL. I'll show you in another video. Go take a look at the live room. Now, this kind of a level would be perfect to be able to you could throw a character in here and start animating. A lot of times you can find some very nice assets and packs on Fab that can be used as is because you're paying for them. You own them outright. And so you have the right to be able to monetize videos and animations that you make using these assets. Obviously, we are all about building a home studio and learning how to build a home studio. Future videos, I want to go over using things like sound reinforcement and other things for your room so that we can learn how to treat our rooms properly and how to maybe use gobos on a recording session to reduce reflections and things for when you're miking up a drum set. And there's so many wonderful things that we're going to be able to share on our channel, and I'm looking forward to sharing with you guys. let's go into our blank level, and then we're going to start making a little room, and we'll start bringing in some assets to make a level. So we're going to go and open our content drawer, go to our maps folder and the studio. And the first thing I want to do is I want to add that content pack that I was talking about for the starter content. We're going to click the add button here. And if we look here, we see add feature or content pack, and we're going to click that. And we have an option. If we wanted to, I could add the first person template and maybe the vehicle template to this if I wanted to have some other functionalities. We're going to click content though, because as you see, we've got the starter content pack and it's got a whole bunch of things in here. Click the button, add to project. Now, if we go into the content browser, we're going to see that we've got starter content in here. And all the starter content has got a bunch of stuff that we can use that are performant, and they're included with the engine to be performant. Open it up real quick here. As we see, we've got a lot of different materials. We've got some particles. Again, we're going to press G to turn on game mode. We've got smoke and fire and electricity. We've got some lights, some simulation that can happen with physics. To do that, if you wanted to simulate physics in your scene without actually playing it, we're going to click the three dots here, and we're going to click the button simulate to start simulating like we were playing it. All of these have physics enabled on them. So when we actually press simulate, that's what it does. Starter content has got a lot of really great stuff in it. We're going to go back into our studio map now, and we're going to go into our content drawer. And in the starter content folder, you're going to find some architecture. We're going to use some of these walls to build a little scene. And we're going to drag in, let's try this wall right here, the 400 by 400. If we go on the side of it, we see that because we're on 10, we're able to lock it to the grid line here. And we can make this maybe 100, so that if we decide we want to make a duplicate, you can do that by holding down the Alt key. And then we're going to hover over the X here. Hold the Alt key, grab the red handled, and we're going to drag off and make a duplicate. Well, that's pretty easy. So let's make that turn 90 degrees this direction so that we could make it into wall corner. So we're going to put this back on 10, make our wall join, and then we're going to make another one so we can select two of these by holding down Control and clicking on the next one. If we hold down Control and click both of these, and then press Control G, we can group those two objects together. And that's really handy, or if you want to then hold down the Alt key and grab off and make another wall. And now we've got a wall that's the exact same size. Let's make one more of this one, and we're gonna, once more, Control G to group them. And then we can come this direction. Another way we can do this is the top down, and it'll turn it into the wireframe. So if you want some more accuracy, we can hold down again the Alt key and drag off of it to make the duplicate and drag it over into place. Okay, we're going to go back to perspective. So now we've got our four walls, and we're going to let's throw a floor in there as well. So we've got a floor, seems to be in the floor, so we're going to pull it up out of the floor. I'm going to hold down the Alt key, make another one. It looks like this wall needs to go over just a little bit. That'll be okay. How do we make this wall not look so drab and the floor look better than a gray color? Well, back to the starter content. We're going to go back into the main folder of the starter content, and we're going to click on materials. As you can see, we have all these materials available for use. Try to find some wood or something like that. Oh, here we go. We've got a wood floor walnut polished. Oh, or worn. Well, maybe our studio's been used a little bit, so we're gonna use the worn one. It looks kind of nice. To use the material, what we're doing is we are grabbing off the material so you can select it, and then grab and drag and drop it onto the item. And this one is made so that you can't see the seam very well. Now, if we click the object, yes, you can find the seam. The way that this material blends together, once it's on those two things and they're joined next to each other, you can't barely tell. Maybe we'd put some carpets or something on top of that. Another way to add a material to your asset or mesh is we're going to have the material selected in the content browser. We're going to go over to the details panel with our object selected. And here we can see in the details panel for all the stuff that you can adjust for this particular asset or mesh. We have the floor, it's listed here, this is the mesh, and then this is the material that's currently applied. What we want to do is put the material on there, and this is another handy way to do it if you don't want to drag and drop them onto your scene. You can press this right here, and I recently found out that this could also be called the push button. So you're going to push that, and then it's just going to add it onto your object. So let's do that one more time for this one on the other side. Go to the details here, and you're going to go ahead and press that. Press the push button, and there we go. We've got our floor. Okay, maybe we will leave our cream wall for a moment, and then let's see here. We're going to go and let's add some items to our scene. So let's go into the studio audio pack that we have, and we have a folder for meshes, and we also have a folder for blueprints. And sometimes developers will get things that they'll put together, like this piano. If we double click this blueprint, this has already been set up inside a blueprint. And it's made from multiple pieces. So this developer has gone in and made this piano set up so that we can technically key each and every one of those keys, play a note. Obviously, we would have to go and set that up inside the blueprint with code. These are things that some developers, when you buy a pack, they're already ready for those kinds of things. So this object is all grouped together inside this blueprint, ready to go. So maybe I want to bring that in from the content drawer. We're going to go to the blueprint. I'm going to just drag it into my scene. And we're going to turn it. Put it right here about in the corner or so. Okay, let's go see if we can find a bench for it. This time we're going to go into the meshes because we're looking for the piano bench. Instead of opening all these folders, another option that you can do is you can use filters to filter out what kind of things are in the scene or in your content folder. We're going to select static mesh, and then that will show us every single static mesh that's inside the meshes folder instead of having to open up the multiple folders. Let's try to find our piano bench. All right, here's our piano bench. We're going to put it over here. Let's see, let's get it just right. We'll put it right about there. And there we go. That's kind of how you would start building a scene out. Another option real quick that I want to show you guys, I keep trying to click to it because my normal way of working is having a second screen. I'll put my content browser. I actually can make a content browser come out by clicking on window. You can open up other content browsers besides the content drawer. Sometimes if the content drawer doesn't work for you, there are other ways to set this up to make it easier, especially if you have two screens. For tutorial purposes, I do use the content drawer, but in this instance, a lot of times I'll find myself automatically reaching for my other screen. I'm going to keep building the scene out, and I will time lapse the video so you guys can watch the rest of it being put together. Okay, so now that we've made a little scene, I debated whether or not I was going to put the tracking room in there, but we're just going to leave it a live room. I'm going to put a ceiling on here so that I can show you guys how to add some lights to your scene. I grabbed this one. I'm going to make my snap sizing a bit bigger, so we're going to do 10. I'm going to hold off the Alt key again, and drag off. All right, now if we go back in our scene, obviously we see there's nothing here. We're seeing a little bit of light bleed, but that's because of auto exposure. I'm going to turn that off for just a moment. Okay, and without auto exposure, now here we are. We don't see anything inside our scene. We're going to actually click that Add to Project button that I showed you earlier. And we're going to go down to Lights, and we're going to select a point light and bring that into our scene. And already we start seeing we've got some light going on in our scene. Now, to change our light color, if we would like, we can come over here, and you're going to click the Details panel. And you can click on this white box right here. Maybe we want to make this different color. There's all kinds of options you can do here. Hit cancel. I'm actually going to use the use temperature. So if any of you are familiar with light bulbs and the temperatures of lights, you'll be familiar here. So we're going to check the box. I'm going to make it a nice warm light, very similar to golden hour. Let's try 3200. Oh, that's a little too much. Oh, a 5200. And as we see, that's very much of a nice warm light. It brings out a little bit of the warmth of the reds. In the time lapse, some of you may have seen that I had actually changed the color on this. If you wanted to change the color of a material, it's super simple. So we're going to click on one, and we're going to click the Details panel. And we see we've got this material, acoustic treatment. We'll click it, and this developer was really, really sweet and put a option here in its materials where you can easily change the color. So we're going to click on the red, and we're going to hit save, and then it's going to apply it to all of our walls. We've got a little bit of light leaking through here, so we need to make our ceiling move over ever so slightly. Now that we've got our light, though, we can also get rid of our skybox, which is something I recommend if you're only doing an indoor scene. Get rid of all those things pretty simple by just selecting them all. The directional light, the height fog, all those things, you can just go ahead and hit delete. So now we're going to save. Another really good place to save is make sure you're always saving inside the content browser and the save button up here. And sometimes you can use this as well, but things in the content browser will not save. You're only doing save like the regular save. Unreal has a bunch of places to save, so I kind of get in the habit of saving regularly. And we're going to go back down into our scene. And now we can't find it, so we're going to use unlit. Here we are. All right, we're inside of the room. Now we can go back to lit, and you can see we still have our light. Maybe we want to make our light just a little bit brighter. So let's make it 10, maybe 20. Maybe that's too bright. Let's try 15. All right, we'll go into game mode and take a look. And here we are. We've got all of our items in the scene. This would be ready for animating now. You could throw a metahuman or a polypixel character or a cartoon character in here and be able to animate them via Live Link, which uses mocap for your face. There's so many options and wonderful things that we can do to be able to make music videos or little short animations for our marketing campaign. Stay tuned to Common Time Productions, and I'll see you in our next video. Happy producing!